Okay, this is going to be a video for the rationals unit for Algebra 2. We're going to talk about some of the basics, which is the first thing we're going to talk about is vertical asymptotes. Okay, a couple things you need to know about a vertical asymptote. It looks like a dashed line that is vertical. This is an x equals based equation. Okay, a horizontal asymptote is obviously a line that's slanted that way, and that is a y equals based equation. Okay, all right. Now, what we have to be able to do is be able to look at an equation and to be able to find the asymptotes. Okay, now to find the vertical or horizontal asymptotes, what we want to do is factor or simplify the numerator and denominator, see if you can eliminate any like factors. We'll get into that in a little bit. If you eliminate a like factor, the solution to that factor is a hole in the graph. We'll get into that in a little bit. The vertical asymptotes is if you solve the denominator, and it is an x equals. Okay? For horizontal asymptotes, you actually have to look at what you have as far as exponent powers and denominators and patterns. Okay? If the denominator is bigger from an exponent standpoint, what would that look like? Something like this. Okay? Something like this. All right, where, as you can see in the order of powers, it's like x to the fourth, x cubed, x squared, x and number, okay? So in the denominator, x is bigger than a number, okay? X squared is bigger than a number. When this is the case, the answer is automatically y equals 0, okay? If you have an inverse function, let me explain what that looks like, okay? All right. If you have an inverse function, looks like that, but it's got this extra term out here. What you have to know is that extra term is the horizontal asymptote. Okay? What happens if you have a tie? What would be an example of that? Something that looks like this. Something that looks like this. Okay, as you can see, the powers, okay, power of 1 tie. Power of 2 tie. So what you do is you divide these coefficients in front of those leading terms. Okay, so in this one, this would be y equals 5. This would be y equals 4. So what you have to do is divide those. If the numerator is bigger, and you'll talk more about this when you get to pre-calc, is that you have a slant asymptote. Okay? You know horizontal asymptote. All right? And when you get to pre-calc, we may get more into depth about slant asymptotes and how you find those, okay? But you have to be able to recognize the pattern, okay? All right, numerator bigger, denominator bigger, tied. A great example, like even if, let's say it would be x squared minus 4 over x plus 1. As you can see, x squared bigger, this would be a slant, okay? All right, so you got to have an idea of those. All right, find the vertical or horizontal and horizontal asymptotes. Okay, so my vertical asymptote, I solve the denominator, so x minus 4 equals 0. That would be x equals 4. My horizontal asymptote, what scenario do I have? Do I have the numerator have bigger exponent, denominator bigger, tie, inverse function? In this case, I got x to the first, so that's going to be automatically y equals 0. Okay? This one, my vertical asymptote, if I solve that denominator, would be 3/2. My horizontal asymptote, what scenario do I have? 1 and 1 for the exponent, so I have a tie. So I divide those, I would get y equals 4. This, I have the inverse function. Now my vertical asymptote is solved the same way. I solve that denominator, which would be x equals 3. My horizontal asymptote is just going to be this. So that's going to be y equals 6. Okay? This one, if I go to solve that, that'll be 4x squared equals 9, divide by 4, that's x squared equals 9/4. take the square root of that, okay? All right. The other way you could have done it, and I probably should have done it this way instead, is if you can factor it really quick. So the way this would factor is that would be 2x plus 3, 2x minus 3. So the vertical asymptotes there would be x equals negative 3 halves, x equals 3 halves, okay? Okay, my horizontal asymptote, I have a tie, 2 and 2, divide that, y equals 4, okay? This one, solve the denominator. My vertical asymptote is x equals negative 7, okay? My horizontal asymptote, what do I have? I have a situation where the denominator has a bigger power, so that's going to be 0. This is the inverse function, so my vertical asymptote, if I solve that, would be x equals negative 2. My horizontal asymptote would be y equals whatever that number is, which is negative 5. Okay? All right? So you can see all that good? Okay? So you guys can go ahead and practice those on your own. Okay? Now, we're going to do this, talk about, find the vertical asymptotes, horizontal asymptotes, and holes, which are called removable discontinuities. What you have to do is factor. If you eliminate these factors, okay, all right, the solution for that will be a hole in the graph. So if I solve that, that's x equals negative 5. That's a hole. What is left over is 1 over x minus 3. Now at this point, I want to look at this and I want to find the asymptotes. Well, my vertical asymptote, if I solve that, would be x equals 3. My horizontal asymptote, since that's a power of 1 and that's a number, that would be y equals 0. Okay? This one, I would cross off x minus 2, so my hole is at x equals 2. I've got what's left over, 2x plus 1 over x plus 4. Well, what scenario do I have there? Well, vertical asymptote, if I solve that, would be x equals negative 4. I would divide these numbers, which that's a 1. So my horizontal asymptote is y equals 2. 2 divided by 1. Okay? These I'm going to want to factor. Okay? All right? So 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Factors of negative 12 that would add up to negative 1 would be negative 4 and 3. Okay, so that's 4x squared minus 4x plus 3x minus 3. That'd be x, that'd be 4x, that'd be 3, that'd be negative 1. Okay, so I got 4x plus 3, x minus 1. Okay, on this bottom part, 2 times 5 is 10. Factors of 10 that would add up to that would be negative 2 and negative 5. Okay, so I got 2x squared minus 2x minus 5x plus 5. That'd be x, x times 2x, x times negative 5, 2x times negative 1. Okay, so my factors there are 2x minus 5, x minus 1. Okay, now that I've done that, I can cross that off. So that's a hole at x equals 1. What's left over? That. So my vertical asymptote, if I solve that denominator, would be x equals 5 halves. And then I have a tie scenario, so 4 divided by 2 would be 2. So that would be the horizontal asymptote. Okay? This one I'd factor 1 times 32 is 32. Factors of 32 that add up to negative 12 would be negative 4 and negative 8. X squared minus 4x minus 8x plus 12. Oh, sorry, plus 32. That'd be x, x times x times negative 8, x times 4. So that's going to be x minus 4 on top, x minus 4 in the bottom, x minus 8 in the bottom. These cross off, so I have a hole at x equals 4. What's left over is 1 over x minus 8. So my vertical asymptote, if I solve that, would be x equals 8. The scenario I have for the horizontal is the denominator is bigger, so that's going to be y equals 0. Okay? All right? So you guys can go ahead and work on those on your own. Okay. Now, the next part, find the x-intercepts and y-intercepts to the following. Okay? So what you want to do here, okay, all right, we can just ignore this one because I don't know why I wrote that twice. Okay? All right, what you want to do, okay, the y-intercept is the easier one to do. For the y-intercept, you substitute 0 for x. Okay? So in this case, if I put 0 in for x, all right, that'd be y equals negative 4, 0 plus 8 That'd be y equals negative 4 over 8. So my y-intercept here would be negative 1/2. Okay, my x-intercept, okay? What you want to do with the x-intercept is set y equal to 0. So if these are ever f of x, you can just set that equal to 0 and solve for x. All right, so what I would have here is 0 equals negative 4 over x plus 8. Okay, now when I go to cross multiply that, so what I want to do is cross multiply this up. Well, 0 times x is 0, 0x, 0 times 8 is 0.
Attention students, anyone riding on bus 267, please report to the bus loop immediately. Again, students on 267, please report to the bus loop immediately.
Okay, all right. All right, so what happens here, and here's why I'm showing you this. Anything times 0 is just going to be 0, okay? All right, anything that's times 0 is just going to be 0. So this would be, I cross multiply, it'd be 0 equals negative 4. Well, could that ever happen? No. So I have no x-intercept there, if that's the case. Okay, so let's go to question number 2. All right, if I want to find the y-intercept, I put 0 in for x. So basically, 10 times 0 is 0, that'd be 6. 5 times 0 would be 0. 0 minus 2 would be negative 2. Well, 6 minus negative divided by negative 2 would be negative 3 for the y-intercept. Okay? All right, to find the solutions, I would set this equal. All right, now what's going to happen is this gets cross multiplied up, that'd be 0. 0 equals 10x plus 6. Okay, solve for x by subtracting 6, that'd be negative 6 equals 10x. Divide by 10, all right, that'd be x equals negative 3/5. That would be the x-intercept. Okay, all right. Now, if you ever have to factor something, what you want to do, okay, all right, go ahead and you can actually find the y-intercept pretty easy, okay. Well, let's go ahead and eliminate this. This is this. Okay. If I put 0 in for x, okay, all right, that would be negative 4. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. You can actually, you can do it either way, but if I eliminate these, it'd probably be easier. So it's going to be y equals 1 over x minus 8. Now I'm going to put 0 in there. That'd be y equals 0 minus 8, which that's going to be y equals negative 1/8 for the y-intercept. For the x-intercept, I would set that equal to 0. All right, if I cross multiply that, that's going to be 0 equals 1, so there's going to be no x-intercept. Okay? All right, for this one, if you want to try to factor it, you can. Okay, so I go to solve, I want to find the y-intercept. I want to put 0 in for x. So that'd be 0 plus 5, 0 minus 5, divided by 0 plus 2, 0 minus 2. All right, so if you want to do that calculation, you can do it that way, or you could just put 0 into the original. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay, so that y-intercept is going to be, that'd be 5 times negative 5, which is negative 25. This would be 4 times negative 2, which is negative 4. That's going to be 10 halves. Okay, to get the solution, what I want to do, set this equal to 0. All right, well what happens is this gets multiplied to be 0, so I got 0 equals this. Okay, well the solutions out of that would be x equals 5 and x equals negative 5. So those would be the x-intercepts. Okay, for this one, for the y-intercept, I would put in 0 for x. So that's 1 over negative 3. Okay, that's going to be the y-intercept. Put that equal to 0. Cross multiply that, that's 0 equals 1, which means I have no x-intercept. Okay? So you guys can go ahead and try those on your own. Okay? All right, going on to these. Same concept. Find the x-intercept and y-intercept. So if I want to do the y-intercept, put 0 in for x. Okay, so that's 1 plus 6 minus 2. If I get a common denominator, that's 1/6 minus 12/6. So that's going to be a y-intercept of negative 11/6. Okay, would be the y-intercept. For the x-intercept, what I'd have to do is set these equal. All right, now the way you solve this is add 2 over to the other side. That's going to be 2 equals 1 over x plus 6. Now, normally, I'm cross multiplying to 0, but now I got this being 2. So when I cross multiply that, I just have to know that I gotta actually distribute that. So it's going to be 2x plus 12 equals 1. Subtract 12. Got 2x equals negative 11. Divide by 2. I get x equals negative 5.5. Okay? And that would be the x-intercept. Okay? All right, so on this one, if I wanted to find the y-intercept, 2, okay, over 0 minus 4 plus 8. So that's 2 over negative 4 plus 8. We can do a common denominator here if we want. So that's going to be negative 2/4 plus 32 over 4, which is 30 over 4, okay, which will reduce to the y-intercept would be 15 over 2. Okay, all right, or about 7.5. All right, the x-intercept, put 0, subtract 8, so that's negative 8. Now I'd want to cross multiply that, so negative 8 times x minus 4 equaling 2. That'd be negative 8x. Negative 8 times negative 4 would be positive 32, equals 2. Subtract 32. That's 8x equals negative 30. Divide by 8. It's going to be x equals 30 divided by 8. It would be negative 3.75. So that would be the x-intercept there. All right. And so why don't you guys go ahead and finish this lesson by doing these. By doing all these components, by finding the asymptotes, by finding out the x-intercept and y-intercept, you're going to help set up how to graph and then solve these rationals.